Hi there, I'm Lee. Welcome back to another video. In today's one, I'm going to be setting up the V-Ling Mining Sky miner box, which is that piece of equipment there behind me. So I'm going to be setting it up with 8 GPUs. If you haven't seen my previous video to this one, please go and check it out. I cover more of the specs and design of the device. But in this one, I'm going to be doing a miner build. So I'm going to be putting the whole thing together and testing it, doing benchmarks, seeing what the performance is like, the power uses, etc. I'll be covering the whole sort of process from start to finish and seeing if there's any sort of teething problems or complications along the way. I'm expecting it to be quite a straightforward build. So not anticipating any problems from the start, so let's see how it goes. I'll talk you through the components now and then we'll continue on with the build. Okay, so this is the hardware that we're going to be using. We have the Mining Sky miner box. Like I said, that's covered in detail in my previous video, specs, etc. We have a power supply that was included with it. It's a 1600 watt power supply, and the notable point is that it doesn't have any ATX connectors. They're all just 6-pin PCI Express connectors. Graphics cards that I'm going to be using for this build are 8 RX 560s. They are the Sapphire Pulse version and they are the OC version. So they have 4 GB of RAM and they also have a 6-pin PCI Express connector on those as well. So that's the hardware that I'm going to be using. Mains power, I've just got a Wattman power meter. Just going to go into the HDMI port. I'll be running it off this monitor. I've got a USB port for the CryptoMiner software, and just a little adapter there for the keyboard and mouse. Just notice as well, as I'm running through that, I'm also going to need a Ethernet cable, so I'll bring that down from the bottom in just a moment. Okay, so let's get started. First off, I'm just going to swap the miner box around. I prefer to work from that position, and then just removing the lid. It's normally secured with 2 small screws either side. So I covered the specs in more detail in the previous video, but essentially it's got a Celeron processor, 4 GB of RAM, a 64 GB SSD, and 8 PCI Express slots. They're 16 times slots, or at least they're 16 times in length. I'm not too sure if they're 16 times channels. I think they're 1 time channels, but 16 times slots. Sorry for the confusion there. We've got the power connectors on the back, fans, and then our GPUs that are going to be going inside. Further down on the right hand side, I'm not too sure if you can quite see it, but that's our power connectors for our power coming in from our power supply. So now I shall start by fitting our graphics cards one by one, just popping those in. So let's continue on with that. So the good thing about this case and design is that it's got a lot of space to work with, and because it's metal framed, it's quite sturdy as well. When you're using the wooden frames, you can find that it's a little bit tricky with everything kind of wobbling about a little bit. So that's one in. Okay, so that's all of our 8 graphics cards installed. Now just to add the power. So it already has some pre-wired power connectors. So these are all 6-pin connectors, but it's also provided with a 6-pin to 8-pin PCI Express adapter. So I'll just start on the longer side. Sorry about that noise there. I'll try and do the power connectors to kind of match the order. It's a little bit stiff. The connectors are really quite stiff. I've used the connectors previously on these power supplies, so I know it's not the graphics card. Sorry, just the white connectors. They're a little bit stiff to get in. Okay, so the power connectors are in, but then I think I'm going to have to go and redo them, put a bit of extra force in. But before I do that, I was intending on leaving it loose, but I'm going to secure the fronts in with screws and then come back and redo the power connectors. I'm not entirely happy. They could pop out, so I don't really want that to happen whilst it's running. So let's secure this properly. Okay, so I secured the graphics cards at the front with screws. They are provided, although unfortunately in my case they wasn't included in the packaging. Maybe they got missed or something. And you can see those power connectors there. Can't quite see it on the camera, but some of them do have ever so slight gap. I don't really feel like the connection, well, they're kind of jammed in there, but you can see like this one, the second GPU, there is a kind of tiny gap. So once again, I'm just going to go back through and re-secure them, but I am putting quite a lot of pressure on those to get those in there now, so it's just a little bit of a tight fitting, unfortunately. Makes it a little bit more tricky to get the job done. So I've just uprighted the miner. You wouldn't normally run it like this, but I just put it in this position just because the daylight is fading. I want you guys to get like a really good look at everything inside there. Sorry, just banging the tripod. So the next job is to add our power. So we have our ATX style power supply, and it has multiple 6-pin PCI Express connectors. So we're just going to plug it in one by one, and then I'll add the mains power to the power supply afterwards. So I'll try and do it in a kind of orderly fashion. It's a little bit of a tangle. And sorry about the noise, that's going to sound awful on camera. Okay, so let's just get going one by one. Drag this a little bit closer. So fitting these PCI Express connectors, you can feel like they kind of like pop into place, unlike the GPU connectors, which really you kind of just keep on pushing and it wouldn't really go in, but they should just, yeah, push and pop. Okay, I'm just going to reposition everything and then we'll do the first power up. Okay, so just to add in our various connectors, so we've got keyboard and mouse, Ethernet, the USB I'll plug in afterwards because I don't want it to boot from the USB, video, power. So I've got the miner kind of this way round just because it's easier to get the connectors from the floor to that, but in a separate section I'll spin it the other way around and we can sort of monitor the sound difference and stuff, etc. So pop the connectors in, keyboard and mouse. Might just do a different, let's just go with it. Are we ready? Hang on, let me... Okay, so just about ready to do the first power on for the device. Now, what I have noticed with this motherboard, it doesn't have any power button, or you can't even, doesn't even have like a header, so you can add a power button itself. So I think what's going to happen as soon as I hit the mains power on the power supply, the machine is going to boot up. So it doesn't have any separate power switches. So that's something that they could probably add. So I'm going to hit the rocker switch on the power supply, and it should come on. We'll see what happens. I've got it plugged up to the monitor there, so I'll have to switch the camera around and show you guys what's on display. Well, it is quite loud. Okay, so I'm talking quite loudly now, and hopefully you can hear me. The fans are very powerful. I can really feel like a lot of air moving around the case, and they're certainly making quite a bit of a racket. One other thing that I've noticed as well is the fans are, I can see on the logos on the top there, so they're kind of rotating this way, but they're coming actually out the front of the case, which is kind of opposite to the GPUs. So I'll come back to more on that in a moment. Okay, so it's on, but I've got no display. I've just added a DVI connector just to see whether it would make any difference. So what I'm going to do is power it off, plug in the HDMI connector to the onboard and see whether that makes any difference. Okay, so I'm still not getting a display, so I've just added in a second HDMI cable, so I've got the onboard connected and also the first graphics card connected as well there. Just then connected to both of the monitors, just in case the signal is coming through one and not the other. We'll try again. I also noticed I double checked all the cables and they appear to be fine. Some of the fans are kind of spinning down, so that's I've seen that before on my other GPU miner. If they're not kind of receiving instruction, they will kind of do that, so it's not a power issue. So let's try it again and see if we can make any progress. Oh, I heard a beep that time. Aha, what's going on here? Okay, so I fixed the display issue. It was entirely my fault. The problem was I had the HDMI cable goes into a splitter, and the splitter is powered by my PC via USB. Because I didn't have that on, simple mistake, the splitter wasn't getting power, so there's no display for the HDMI. So now I've reconnected it, I've got the display on the screen. It's the automatic repair button. It's going to restart the machine and we'll continue on from there. So my fault, not the hardware. So it seems the Windows installation got corrupted as I powered off the machine, swapping over the HDMI cables, etc. So what I've done now is unplugged all of the power connectors, which were really difficult once again. I've just left one power connector in there for one GPU. So hopefully this time we can boot up into Windows without any driver issues. Okay, so that didn't actually work. The power supply just tripped out, the fans just come on for a second and then nothing. So it seems that we can't use it with just a single power connector. So in that case I think I'll have to reconnect all the power connectors and then do like a fresh install of Windows or something. Okay, so the copy of Windows just got stuck in a boot loop. I couldn't do it, I couldn't disconnect the graphics cards, or at least up from the power. So now I'm just doing a reinstall of Windows, just trying to take it back to the factory, and then we should be able to continue on from there. So minor hiccup, really it was my fault for powering down the system during that. Well, I did actually cancel the driver installation partway through, and then you know, shut down the system properly. So I don't know, you get these issues from time to time, but doing a reinstall, hopefully that should fix it and we can continue onwards. Right, so just whilst I'm completing the rest of the Windows installation and setup, I have decided to disconnect the fans. The power supply fan makes a little bit of noise on its own, also the GPUs, you can hear them just slightly, but those other fans at the back there, they make a hell of a lot of noise, and after you've been sitting there for an hour you just want to pull your own ears off. So I've decided to disconnect those until I get the rest of the miner up and running. Okay, so we're on the final stretch now. The miner is up and running, Windows is installed and running as well, barring that little mishap that we had with the drivers. So now it's just a case of installing the GPU drivers. I'm going to go with the DagFix mining drivers provided by AMD, and also just a general sort of mining software. So I'll get all that installed and then we'll be able to continue on. Okay, so there's something not quite right with this machine hardware setup or configuration. So I just started installing the AMD drivers, and I was at the point where I was just extracting the drivers. They extract from the compressed file to a file on your hard drive, and halfway through that process the machine just restarted. It tried to boot up again, restarted again, and now it's kind of going into a disk repair, which is pretty much the same as what happened, and I thought it was because I was messing around with the HDMI cables, but something's still not right. So there's quite a lot of pain going on trying to get this miner set up when it should be really simple. So it's a bit of a nuisance really, because the fitting of the hardware took literally sort of 10 minutes and now it's all just software which is just eating up the whole day. A little bit disappointing. Okay, so we're finally up and running. So I had lots of problems, not so much with the machine or the hardware. A lot of the problems was with the Windows installation. So I got into a problem where I had like a reboot, and I just couldn't get it to sort of fire up. So normally in that situation, what I've done in the past is remove all the graphics cards, just go with one graphics card, get your Windows installation up and running, and then add your graphics cards, and then normally you'll find you're good to go. But with this one, when I disconnected the power for each of the graphics cards, the whole rig kind of would short out, it wouldn't boot back up. So what I probably could have done is taken the graphics cards out also and just left one graphics card in there and one power connector. But normally I've, you know, leaving the graphics cards plugged in but with the power connector unplugged, normally that would work. So anyway, kind of a long story short, I'm now using SMOS SimpleMining.net, and just basically took Windows out of the equation. So now it's up and running. We've got the 8 GPUs running. We're getting just a 101 mega hashes mining Ethereum. So what I'll do now is I'm just going to flip the camera around, just to show you the settings and stuff, power usage, etc. And then we'll go into a few other details with regards to the fan and the casing and that kind of stuff. So the machine is running and you can hear it's quite quiet. The fans, I've got them set to 40%, so you can't even really hear the GPU fans, and they are running at about 65 degrees. Most of the noise is coming from the power supply. I'll just give you a quick look at the Claymore's miner. It's mining in Ethereum only mode. The watt meter tells us we're using 76 watts, so that's really good efficiency. I'd estimate that each one of the GPUs is probably using about 50 watts. The clock settings that I've got the core set to 1020 and the memory clock set to 2100. Power limit is set to setting 1 on SMOS, so they're the settings that I'm going to use. And like I say, at the moment the current GPU temperatures for each one of them is about 65 up to a maximum of 70 degrees for some of the inside cards, and the ambient room temperature is 23 degrees. So what I'm going to try now is reconnecting the main fans and see how that compares when just leaving the box open as it is. Let's see whether those fans help or whether they are running in what I think is a backwards configuration. Okay, so I've just plugged all the fans back in, and as you can see it's really quite noisy. So what I'm going to do now is just put the casing back on and see how that affects the sound and also the temperature of the mining rig. The Claymore's miner has just started over there, so I'll just give it a second or two to warm up and kind of get to that running temperature. So for the sound, like I say, I'm not even sure if you're going to hear this very well. Hopefully you can. But I really do think that all the heat should be moving through the case from the front to the back, and at the moment we've got the cards working out the back, so it's not so much of a problem for these type of design. But if you've got blower fans, they're going to be working opposite each other. That just doesn't make sense to me. So anyway, let's put the casing on and see what difference it makes to the sound. Okay, so it does sound a little bit better, but it's still probably just about as loud. It's just the tone is kind of changed slightly. So now with the casing on, it is slightly quieter, I would say. Can't really sort of demonstrate how much airflow is coming out, but it's a lot all along the front. And what you can also notice, or you can sort of hear it, is there's kind of like a vacuum effect coming from the top here. So there's definitely a lot of airflow going through, but I just feel like those fans are kind of the wrong way around. I really think that they should be the other way. The only way to know for sure would be by testing it. But anyway, let's see what the miner is reporting. We'll give it another minute and then we'll sort of see what the details are. So we have the same hash rate, and the GPU temperatures are running a lot cooler, so they're running about 50 degrees. So the GPU fans are at the same rate, but the other fans are kind of working, and that movement of the airflow is definitely helping to keep those cool. So I could probably reduce the fans to kind of the GPU fans to 0 and get the same result. So in fact, I'll try that. Okay guys, so now we've been running for just about 4 minutes to be precise. You can see the digits details on the bottom there. So the GPUs are running at about 50 degrees. I've turned down the fans to 20% the GPU fans, so we're just mostly relying on the fans that are inside the main box there. So they're whirring away and they're working really well. Despite all the noise, they're definitely working well. You can see the power usage, just about, it's 510 or 12 watts overall. So really good efficiency. Despite the noise, the setup is really quite good overall. So let's wrap up and I'll do a summary of today's events. Okay, so let's wrap up on today's events and activities. So the V-Link mining box. So I really like the product, but there's a couple of kind of issues that need to be addressed. A lot of you guys have said in the comments previous to this is the price. And then the price is currently at $899, and I do agree the price is quite higher relatively to what you could put the other equipment together. By rough sort of estimates, you could probably put the same hardware together for about $500 or $600 and get very similar performance. So I do like the box, I do like the concept and the all-in-one motherboard. I really like that, but I think the price does need to come down a little bit. The hardware itself is generally of a good construction. The fans, I would like to see the option to adjust the speed on those. If you're using them for any kind of home environment, the fans are just too noisy. There's no way you're going to work with this. Like I said, when I was doing the original installation, the noise was just too much. I just wanted to put some ear defenders on or something. You know, doing the initial setup, you just didn't even want to be beside the machine. So when you compare that to like a normal sort of a mining rig, if you have like the blower fan, sometimes it can be a bit intrusive, but this is well beyond that. It's more than intrusive. It's ridiculous. But that aside, the whole sort of general idea is quite good. I was kind of disappointed I didn't get Windows running on it in the end. That was not really due to the hardware, I don't believe. I think that's just a driver issue, software issue. And in the end, I just kind of run out of time with the Windows reinstall. I did try and reinstall it a few times, and I got it to sort of install once, but then as soon as we got to the drivers, it sort of crapped out again. And like I said, normally in that situation, I would remove all the GPUs, do the install of Windows, and then add the GPUs back into the setup. But unfortunately, because when I tried that, it wouldn't work because of the power supply. So that needs a bit more tinkering and work. So in the end, I ended up using Simple Miner OS. Had to fiddle around with the BIOS quite a bit when I was changing the BIOS options to boot from USB. At first, those options wouldn't stick. I thought maybe it's because the CMOS battery is missing, so I added a battery, and it still didn't stick. But in the end, I found another way to set that setting within a separate part of the BIOS. It's just weird and kind of complicated. A lot of minor issues throughout the day, which is kind of one of those things when you were using a new piece of equipment or hardware, you kind of have to go through these lessons, if you like, to work out the best way of doing things. Obviously, if I was to have like a second box, I'd know the process or how I'd want to get up and get running with that. Just going back onto the fans, I still think the fans are backwards. So the only way to know for sure would be to test with both configurations, but I do think having all of the fans working together and going in the same direction is how they should be. At the moment, the GPUs are facing exporting the air one way and the fans are kind of going the other way, and I don't think that's the right way because there's no other, it just doesn't make sense. So I'm sure it should go the other way. Maybe you guys know something different. So unfortunately, like I say, run out of time on this one. I didn't get to do as much testing and benchmarking as I would like to. So what I would do from here is I will do a follow-up video at some point and try and get a few of the other algorithms. I like to test it on Zcash and Monero as well. But ultimately, that's really more down to the GPU performance, which you've seen on a lot of my previous videos, rather than the miner as a whole. So I'm going to leave it there for this one. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comments area below, and I'll respond to all of you guys as I always do. So thanks very much for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one.